Hello, everybody, and welcome. Let's get right into it and answer the toughest question of the day. What exactly is Excel? Well, granted, Excel is very broad and deep, and it can do all kinds of cool stuff, of which we'll show you later. But if you take Excel and you boil it down to its purest essence, Excel is nothing more than a big, fancy electronic calculator. While it's true you can do all kinds of cool, high-powered analytics, you can create charts, pivot tables, integrated AI, all that fancy stuff. But in the end, Excel is nothing more than a calculator. The most basic way to use Excel is the following. What you do is you enter content, and content means nothing more than text, numbers, or some combination of such. You do some calculations. You then save, spell check, and print, and you're out the door. And yes, granted, that is a gross oversimplification of what Excel can do, and we're only saying that simply to put your conscience at ease if you're brand new to Excel. Let's get into it. Go ahead and open Excel on your PC. Then, once Excel is open, in the upper left-hand corner, just go ahead and click Blank Workbook. Let's take a little bit of time and get familiar with the Excel environment. Whenever you open up an Excel file, it is technically referred to as a workbook. Some people call it a worksheet, and that's fine. Just know that workbook equals file equals spreadsheet. So why do they call it a workbook? Well, in the physical world, a book contains pages. And another word for pages is sheets. So workbooks contain sheets. So if we isolate ourselves on one sheet and examine the structure, you're going to notice it's displayed as a grid. And that grid contains rows and columns. Columns are identified with letters. Rows are identified with numbers. The intersection of a row and a column is called a cell. Get it, Excel? Anyhow, the main question people ask is how do you navigate around? Well, it's really done by using coordinates. For example, you want to go to the intersection of B10 or C15. However, that's a little too technical. Or if it helps, a popular analogy people use, and one I've used for decades, is you want to imagine yourself playing that game Battleship. If you are familiar with that game Battleship from when you were a kid, moving around in Excel is the exact same thing. In the end, the simplest way to get around Excel is simply to take your mouse, hover over the cell that you want, and then click it. The other way you can move around is to use your arrow keys up, down, left, right, and that'll get you through basic maneuvering in Excel. Moving on, let's talk about how to add some content into Excel. Believe it or not, adding content in Excel is almost the same as typing in text from other word processing applications, like Microsoft Word, Google Docs, or even typing an email. Put another way, if you already know how to type in text from, say, Microsoft Word, you already know how to do it here in Excel. You probably just aren't aware of it. Let's see how it's done by adding in some simple content. For this exercise, feel free to click in whatever cell you want and simply start typing. Type any word that comes to mind. And once you're done typing it, press your Enter key, and that's it. And just like every other Microsoft product out there, there is always several ways of doing the same thing. So if you don't like using the Enter key, you can type your text and then press any of your arrow keys up, down, left, right, and that'll suffice as well. Moving on, let's say while you're typing, you make a mistake. Whoops! You can remove the unwanted text by pressing the backspace key. Next, let's say you're typing along and you decide that you do not want that text there. As long as the text has not been entered, you can remove it by pressing your escape key. Moving on, let's say you have typed some text into a cell and you decide that you no longer want the text. Simply click the cell, press your delete key, and it's gone. There may be times when you don't want to delete the text, rather you want to edit the text or change it in some way. There are several ways we can do this. Method 1 is to hover over the cell and do a double click, and that'll put you into an edit mode. The other method to edit the cell is to click on it and press your F2 key. No matter which method you choose, once you're in an edit mode, all you have to do is type the text to modify it as you wish, press your Enter key, and you're all set. The last thing we'll look at as far as working with text is good old-fashioned selecting. To select some cells, make sure your mouse looks like a fluffy plus sign, then simply click and drag. You can deselect your text by clicking somewhere else. Let's wind this section up by taking a moment to acknowledge the fact that there are a ton of ways to navigate in Excel, enter text, modify text, etc. The goal here was to show you the primary ways of entering and modifying text, and not to overload you. You can learn them as you go along. Moving on, We've worked really hard and we obviously don't want to lose any of the work that we've done, so let's save this file. If you save files in other Microsoft applications, it's done the exact same way here in Excel. By chance you have not saved files, you have a couple options. One way is to click on the Save icon in the upper left-hand corner, then at the prompt, give your file a name and click Save. The other is to click File, Save, choose the location you want to store it in, give the file a name, click Save, and you're all set.